Hi, today I'd like to talk about a little thing that editors tend to call the serial comma. By serial, I don't mean like Cheerios. I mean, it comes before the word and at the end of a series of three or more things in a sentence. It's what a lot of people like to call the Oxford comma. I don't think there's any great merit in calling it the Oxford comma, but apparently some people think it sounds more impressive or educated or something like that. Well, I think it sounds more like
the Oxford comma.
There are some people who advocate quite strongly for it, and they will use examples such as, I would like to dedicate this book to my parents, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter. So they'll say, okay, if you don't have that comma, then it says, my parents, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter. In which case, oh no, you may be saying that your parents are the Cheshire Cat and the Mad Hatter. Oh dearie, dearie, how are we going to know? This is so confusing. But if we put the comma in, then it's very, very clear that it's three things. Oh, that day is saved. Okay, but how about if instead you dedicate it to my wife, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter? Then, if you have that comma there, it could be read as my wife, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter. Oh no! But that could mean that your wife is the Cheshire Cat. Oh no, oh dear. So we have to take out the comma, and then it's very clear, you see. My wife, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter. Oh no, what are we going to do? Well, for starts, we can stop imagining that the author is delusional. We could also just use a more reasonable real-world example. So, for instance, I have here with me my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini. Or do I have my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini? Now, if I have the comma, then it's my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini. Or, it could be my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini. If I don't have the comma, then it's my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini. Or, it's my lunch, some Cheerios, and a martini. This is where I make the big bucks, folks. If I had a quarter for every time I fixed this simple issue with a little simple rewriting, actually, I do have a quarter for every time I've fixed it, because going by my hourly rate, that's about how much I get paid for rewriting a sentence. It's very easy. I would like to dedicate this book to the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, and my parents. I would like to dedicate this book to the Cheshire Cat, the Mad Hatter, and my girlfriend. I had my lunch plus some Cheerios and a martini. Oh, I had my lunch, which was some Cheerios and a martini. Or I could just change the punctuation. I had my lunch dash, some Cheerios dash, and a martini. You see, it's not about correctness. It's not about clarity. One little punctuation mark is not going to make all the difference in the world about clarity. It's all about style. If you have a style sheet that calls for the serial comma, in general, you're going to find that it feels a little more precise. It has the air of greater precision, maybe. If you have it without the serial comma, it's going to seem a little more relaxed, informal. Some publishers require the serial comma across the board. My friend Benjamin Dreyer is a big fan of the serial comma, which means anytime I do any work for Random Penguin, I can just go with the serial comma and we're great. So it's not that big a thing, but given a choice, if I want to make something feel a little more relaxed, then often I will choose a style without the serial comma. So, for instance, I could say, to make a martini, you need a glass, some gin, and a little vermouth. So without the comma, you need a glass, some gin, and a little vermouth. With the comma, you need a glass, some gin, and a little vermouth. The thing is that serial commas are commas, and they add up with other commas, and it can make a very, very, well, the funny thing is it almost gets to seem excited, which is ironic given that comma heads are prevailing. But take, for instance, a slightly improved version of the recipe. To make a martini, you need a glass, some gin, and, if you want, a little vermouth. Add the comma and you need a glass, some gin, and, if you want, a little vermouth. It gets to be a little bit too much like the Christopher Walken comma. Wow, to make a martini, you need a glass, some gin, and, if you want, a little vermouth. Hey man, it's just your style. In the end, use it, don't use it, according to what feels better, what your audience or client will expect, what's going to be clear in your context. Just follow the editor's prime directive. Be consistent.